I'm Jenny from Foden Property, and this is Katie, also from Foden Property. We thought we'd pop on today, obviously with a general election being called recently, and we've noticed that we've got some sellers and some buyers who are quite hesitant to make any decisions. Shall I go on the market? Shall I buy now? What shall I do? A little bit hesitant because they don't know what is coming next, which is, very understandable. I think everyone kind of feels a little bit the same, absolutely. So we just thought we'd pop on and have a little chat about what different parties are offering, what effect we think they're going to have within our industry, and just sort of make people a little bit more aware. Obviously, we can't be certain. We can only go on what we're hearing in some of the manifestos that we've already been given. And we thought we'd sort of go from there. One thing that I have seen, and people don't necessarily know what it means, so it would be a nice place to start, I think, is ROPA. People might have heard ROPA being mentioned time and time again from certain parties over the years. Yeah. What is it, Katie? What's ROPA?
It's a piece of legislation that keeps being bounced around, which relates to ROPA, the Regulation of Property Agents. So the theory behind it and the way we're being we don't know if and when it's going to happen, but the backdrop of it is, and we're being advised to prepare for a requirement for us all to be qualified, to make us more professional. Something as a business we're already well ahead of.
Yeah.
And I think in theory it's actually a really good idea, but it's something that keeps getting bounced out and then nothing happens, and then it gets bounced out and we're all a flurry of activity. It's going to happen in the next 2 years. You've got to get ready, and then it disappears again. It's something that Labour has been talking about for the last 10 years. It's something the Conservatives were pushing, but it seems to have kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit, with other things taking precedence. It's one of those things that's kind of bouncing around, will directly affect us, and will hopefully help to get rid of the horrible reputation that estate agents have historically had. Mm-hmm. But it's up in the air still.
Yeah, okay. As Katie said, we're all for years and years, we've kind of been trying to get ahead of the game on this one. So, and as have a lot of agents, to be fair, haven't they? So it has become a much more professional industry over the past 5 years.
A lot of agents have chosen to sign themselves up to professional bodies. There's no requirement for us to do it. We're signed up for Property Mart, so we're NAEA regulated and ALA regulated on sales and lettings, and that requires us to be qualified. In order to hold a membership, you have to be qualified. So it's something that we've been working on in the background for quite a number of years. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's have just a brief look at what effect the different parties are thinking about our industry as a whole, obviously. What are your thoughts? What are the main ones that you would say?
Well, I think it all took us all a little bit by surprise.
Yeah.
And I'm not at all sure that the British public are ready for an election, if I'm being perfectly honest with you.
I think everybody that I speak to, it's sort of like, I don't know. Who am I going to vote for? I don't know. I've no idea. They're all the same. And it is very much like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So I think first off the bat, we've all been caught a little bit on the back foot with regards to it. And I can well imagine that the political parties feel that way too. Rishi Sunak has obviously made a decision to do this, and it sounds like it was an off the hip. So not really sure about that. But what it did do, because obviously Parliament is dissolved and everything in the whole world stops while this general election period is happening, there were a couple of bits of legislation that got squeezed in right at the last minute that do affect us. One in particular, which is the freehold and leasehold bill, mm-hmm. which we will talk about in a bit more detail in a separate thing. But it is important that at the very last throes of the last Friday before everything closed, this particular piece of legislation came through, and is something that we as agents are going to have to address, and the solicitors are going to have to address. So that was quite a major thing that happened. The thing that didn't go through, which we were all half expecting and are possibly quite relieved that it didn't pass because of the the fact that it's not a fully functioning idea yet was the Renters Reform Bill, which is effectively the act that would have got rid of Section 21. Most of the purpose of it, one of the biggest implications from our point of view, is the removal of Section 21, so no fault evictions. That didn't pass. It's going to happen. I feel absolutely certain that is going to happen, but it definitely needs a bit more thought than it's not a fully formed idea yet. So that's something that didn't get passed. So we've got a little bit of breathing space in regards to that. The other things that it's actually very difficult when you're looking at what the political parties are kind of seem to be putting forward. Reform, I mentioned straight off the bat because they haven't got a full manifesto yet, as we've seen, or not that we've seen. So we don't really know what their overall plans are. We know some bits and bobs about certain things. They are definitely of the opinion that the Renters Reform Bill should be axed.
In full.
In full.
Totally, yeah.
Whether or not... the general feeling is that there will need to be some sort of changes in regards to no-fault evictions. Reform have basically said, yeah, we're not going to touch that for now. So that's quite out there because all the other major political parties do believe that that is something that needs reform. The Lib Dems have all three of the major political parties. One of their main things as it pertains to us is house building. Mm-hmm. All of them are saying we need to build more houses, we need to build more houses, we need more affordable housing. I feel a little bit like I'm stuck in Groundhog Day with regards to that particular pledge, in the sense that that is a reoccurring theme every time there's a general election.
Yeah.
And its success or failure, it depends what they're going to build. You know, the fact of the matter is, new builds are not cheap. They're not cheap housing, even when they're framed as affordable.
To affordable housing.
Yeah.
I mean, what is affordable housing? What's classed as affordable housing these days?
Affordable to who?
Affordable to who? Exactly. Yeah. Affordable to who? And we all know that, you know, first-time buyers do need help getting on the ladder. Yeah. Absolutely do. Yeah. And there are some policies that I believe Labour have put forward that they're very strong on helping first-time buyers, which has got to be a good thing.
And the Conservatives have...
Yeah, but it's got to also be, where does that affordability, where does that come from? Because obviously everywhere in the country has got different affordability. Is it used to be there was a certain percentage of new build properties that had to be social housing?
Yeah. Now
it's just classed as affordable, and it begs the question: are they just using that word because it can be?
It's a buzzword, isn't it? It's a buzzword. It seems to have, over the years and its overuse, it seems to have lost all credible meaning, in the sense that we know what an affordable housing project looks like. We actually don't. What I have spotted, and obviously all this information is fairly preliminary at this point. The Conservatives are talking about, I believe it's leaving stamp duty. No one will pay stamp duty, or first-time buyers won't pay stamp duty up to £425,000. Mm-hmm. And they're also talking about reinstating the help to buy schemes.
And we've had the stamp duty at that kind of level before for first-time buyers, and it worked, and it absolutely was good for the housing market. Yeah, definitely.
So the return of the help to buy schemes, arguably they shouldn't have been moved in the first place if they were what was needed. Mm-hmm. But, you know, we are where we are.
They worked well for a lot of people, didn't they?
And is this what they mean by affordable, making housing affordable? Because effectively you can borrow from the government money towards your deposit, which will keep your mortgage payments down, but you've still got to pay it back.
Of course you've got to pay it back. And some.
And it only ever relates to new build houses.
Yeah. Why? Yeah, that's the good question. Why is that? Why?
I don't know. I think there needs to be more help for the resale, because you can arguably, not everybody wants to buy a new build house, and you arguably get more bang for your buck
Exactly.
on the resale market,
Because-
and yet the assistance isn't there for that.
Because it's clear that, new build properties do come at a premium price tag.
Yeah. There's a little bit of a false economy there.
Yeah.
So that's quite an interesting thing. The thing you become very noticeable with regards to the Labour plans, I think it's very energy driven.
Yeah.
And although there have been some very successful energy efficient sites, I mean, we've got what's it called? Millennium Village up at Ketley, which was a kind of an eco town as they built it then. I think there's a little bit of a fallacy in the sense that they're saying we're going to build all these eco houses and they're going to be EPC rating C or above. Most new build houses are. So that in itself is a little bit of fluff.
Yeah.
But I also sort of think if you're talking about affordable housing and at the same time as you're talking about making everything super eco-friendly, you're probably not talking about affordable housing. You're talking about housing that's expensive to build.
Well, again, it's affordable to who, isn't it?
Right.
Because they absolutely come at...
If you're talking about getting rid of boilers and putting in what they call air source heat pumps,
yeah.
They're more expensive than a boiler by about 3 to 5 times, aren't they? More expensive. So there's going to be a premium attached to these eco houses. And again, I'm not quite sure who you're aiming that at. So it feels a bit buzzwordy again in the sense of affordable housing, eco housing, carbon neutral, this, that, and the other. And I kind of feel like it's all the same pot. They're all saying we need to build more houses, but we already know that. But who's building them? Because actually what we need is better social housing, like true social housing, that they don't then just sell off. To ease up the private rental sector, because, there's a huge wave of people at the moment who can't afford to rent.
Yeah.
So they need housing. These are the people who are vulnerable and going to end up on the streets.
And we refer back to, again, like we've done a previous conversation about the making it much more difficult for landlords at the moment is just piling on the pressure of the private rental market.
Right. And one of the manifestos, which I think was one of the things that I was reading. You have to bear with us because
bear with us. We're literally just learning this as we all are. We're learning it as we go. Things are changing every day.
One of them was talking about with the abolition of the Section 21. They were talking about making minimum 3-year tenancies.
How is that ever going to work? How is that going to work for anybody?
This is the point,
Both parties, because life changes. Life gets in the way. You need to move sometimes,
Yeah, either party. And I sort of think they're targeting the wrong things. If you actually make more property available and you encourage landlords and you encourage rental properties, naturally the properties will improve and the rents will come down because of competition. Nailing landlords to the ground and making it more difficult for people to be flexible is not the way forward. It's just not. And I can see that causing a massive problem in the private rental sector, which will be fine if there suddenly becomes social housing, true council houses back available.
Yeah.
But they don't exist at this moment in time, not in any volume. And so if you are too quick to drive the private landlords out, what?
Shortage.
So I think all of them have got the right idea that we need more housing. All of them have got the right idea that we need more affordable housing for just normal people. I think there's some issues with regards to what that means. I think there's some issues in regards to how they're going to target that. I mean, if you're talking about building, I think Labour have actually said 1.5 million new homes in the next 5 years, which is about 300,000 a year. The Lib Dems have said 380 a year.
380,000 a year.
Including 150 social homes.
Yeah.
The Conservatives have just pledged a budget.
They've said, yes, absolutely. 11.5 billion affordable homes programme for 21 to 26. Tens of thousands of homes. Yeah.
Right. So they're all pledging the same kind, and they're at the same kind of levels, I would imagine. But what no one seems to be clear about is the house builders have been through the mill. A lot of them have got sites that are not sold. So what that seems to be telling us is the appetite for like just swathes and swathes of these sorts of new build homes is not there in the volume for them to need to build these. What they need to build is bread and butter houses.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is the money's not in it for the builders. So who's building them? And what help is going to be given to encourage the builders to build them? So I have a little bit of an issue because I feel like all of them have sort of said the same thing, but I actually feel like that's a repeat of previous elections, if I'm honest. That seems that we've known that's a problem for decades. In reality, there aren't enough houses.
Yeah, I think across the board that repeats. You know, we hear things time and time again, don't we?
Absolutely.
All sorts of,
We're too old,
things
that's
that
the
are
problem.
offered. Probably
That's the
is.
problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mortgage rates, that's something else that people are talking about. Are the mortgage rates going to come down? Nothing's going to happen for at least the next 6 months or so. Nothing can happen now. The Bank of England can't do anything on the run up to the general election.
No, can't do anything.
There will be no movement whatsoever in regards to mortgage rates. I think the feeling in general is that it's quite good. I think the general optimism is that it's quite good. Inflation is coming down. What it's not doing, we almost need inflation to go into reverse. So even though inflation's coming down, which is great, it doesn't actually take into account the rises in prices that we've already had. And the likelihood of inflation going backwards is kind of practically nil, but still. Interest rates, I think, will come down, but they're not going to be back in the historic lows, nor do I think they necessarily should be that low. I think that was a little bit dangerous economy-wise in its own right, but I think interest rates are going to will come down a little bit and stay relatively secure. It feels as if the crisis in the general environment, the general economy, seems to have ebbed, doesn't it? We're sort of things feel like they're stabilising a bit.
Yeah.
And that will mean that we're expecting the housing market to remain stable, aren't we?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
You know, people will have this immediate wobble and then life will carry on.
Yeah, we've noticed that. I've definitely noticed a hesitancy in buyers and sellers, as I said earlier, and that's just par for the course, isn't it? When anything like this happens, we had Brexit. You know, everyone goes, "Oh, well, what are we going to do? We'll just stay put for a minute. What's going to happen?" You know, and that's natural. That's a natural reaction. That's the good thing that we've only got a few weeks now until the general election, so that hesitancy hopefully won't last too long. We're still selling properties, we're still taking them on, we're still putting them to market, so the market is definitely still going, which is great. But yeah, people have definitely kind of slowed down. Well, I think we'll just wait and see what happens, see who comes in, and see what, where we're led from there, really.
Rightmove ran a little poll, and it's amongst home movers, and the findings were that 95% of the people that were polled said that the election will not affect their plans for home buying. So that's quite positive, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we expect the market to remain steady. We expect prices to remain fairly steady. We have seen slow ups and cooling offs in certain parts of the market, and other parts of the market are still moving really well, and that's shifting around. So, it will all kind of right itself at some point. I feel confident.
Absolutely.
But steady for now.
For now.
And next week we'll be here going, oh my God, this has just happened.
It's so crazy. Yeah, it's so crazy. Can't get enough houses on.
Anything else, do we think?
Who knows? If you've got any questions, pop them on comment section, or give us a call, ask us any questions. If we don't know the answers, we'll try and find them for you. But please feel free.